Station silenced. A moment of on-air silence for slain journalists Alison Parker and Adam Ward. Remove the bust. An effort to remove a statue of Planned Parenthood's founder from the National Portrait Gallery. Shocking find. Dozens of decaying bodies found stacked inside a truck in Austria. And papal buzz. Social media hums with Francis mania. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, August 27th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Black pastors demand the removal of a bust of Planned Parenthood's founder from a Washington museum. The National Portrait Gallery says it won't do it. Jason Calvi is there tonight with that story.
Brian, Margaret Sanger was a pioneer of the birth control movement. She also supported eugenics, the idea to limit reproduction for prisoners and others. Today, a group of pastors say she wanted to use eugenics to limit the black community. So today, they're asking this famous gallery to get rid of her image.
The bus gotta go.
Black pastors and pro-life leaders rally outside the National Portrait Gallery. They want a bust of Margaret Sanger removed from a permanent exhibit.
I think that adds insult to injury that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, is in the Hall of Justice when she's the founder of an abortion chain that's killed millions upon millions of children.
Exterminate the Negro population.
Protestant Bishop E.W. Jackson led today's charge.
Well, Margaret Sanger was, frankly, a blatant racist who devalued human life and thought that there were people who weren't worthy of life. And she said that on many occasions.
Pro-life activist Ryan Bomberger points to Sanger's autobiography and a speech she gave to the KKK.
I don't know how you can possibly say someone is not racist that actually speaks at a KKK rally. And try that today. See how that goes for you.
The Portrait Gallery says it's their job to tell the American story, which includes Sanger.
She is not in the museum in an unqualified way. We talk about her role in the women's rights movements, but we also recognize that there's less than admirable aspects to her career and her involvement in the eugenics movement.
Okay, folks, we're going to the bus.
But for these pastors, that's not good enough. They dropped off a petition signed by 14,000 people.
Because we're not going to rest until the bust is removed.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Planned Parenthood is under fire right now. Undercover videos allege the group is harvesting baby parts and selling them for profit. Now today, Planned Parenthood wrote Congress saying that the videos have been altered. The group behind the videos says they've just edited out waiting times and bathroom breaks. They say that doesn't change the meaning of what was said. Brian?
Jason Calvi at the National Portrait Gallery. Thank you, Jason. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. A Roanoke, Virginia TV station goes silent to honor two slain journalists. Susie Pinto reports.
Please join us now in a moment of silence.
WDBJ's morning newscast marked the 24 hours since two of the station's journalists were killed during a live broadcast. Stunned friends and coworkers are mourning the death of Alison Parker and Adam Ward. Parker started working full-time at the station last year after a summer internship. She was in a relationship with the station's evening anchor, Chris Hurst.
I need the entire world to know that a woman as amazing as her exists and was taken too soon, and our love is forever.
Adam Ward was engaged to the morning show's producer and is remembered as a go-getter.
What's especially tragic is not only was he robbed of his life, this world was robbed of the future goals that he would have achieved.
The woman who was being interviewed, Vicki Gardner, was also shot. Her condition has been upgraded to good. Her husband was watching when the shooting happened.
Oh, there's no making sense of it. Obviously a very disturbed individual, wanted to take out on his former co-workers. Just a senseless deed. And my wife happened to be there at the wrong time.
The gunman was a former reporter who had worked at the Roanoke station, but was fired 2 years ago. Vester Flanagan later died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. In a 23-page fax sent to ABC News, a man claiming to be Flanagan writes he was a powder keg waiting to go boom. Susie Pinto, EWTN News Nightly.
Alison Parker's distraught father says he heard from his reporter daughter almost every day.
She would be texting me right now saying, "Dad, what'd you think of my story? You know, what'd you think of it?" And I'm never going to hear that again. She was so loved by all, and I know my heart is broken.
And our hearts go out to him. Parker's father says he supports the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but will now push for sensible gun control laws. Migrants continue to flow into parts of Europe in record numbers. Police in Hungary say they've detained more than 3,200 migrants just yesterday, many of them from Syria. That's 700 more than the day before. Britain says it gained almost 330,000 people through migration in 12 months, the highest figure on record. Austrian police discover the badly decomposing bodies of at least 20 and possibly up to 50 migrants. They were piled in a truck parked on a highway shoulder between Budapest and Vienna. Decomposition was so bad, police couldn't tell exactly how many people there were or how long the bodies had been there. Forensics experts are investigating. A county clerk's office in Kentucky turns away a third attempt of a same-sex couple to get a marriage license. This defies an earlier order from a federal appeals court upholding a judge's directive to issue those licenses. Rowan County Clerk Kim Davis cites her Christian faith and constitutional right to religious liberty in her refusal, and the office's refusal. Hillary Clinton draws parallels between terrorists and the Republican presidential candidates with their views on women.
Extreme views about women, we expect that from some of the terrorist groups. We expect that from people who don't want to live in the modern world. But it's a little hard to take coming from Republicans who want to be the president of the United States, yet they espouse out-of-date and out-of-touch policies. They are dead wrong for 21st century America. We're going forward, we're not going back.
The Democratic presidential candidate speaking to supporters in Cleveland, Ohio. Of course, Ohio is a key state as the general election approaches next year. Republican Carly Fiorina brings her strongly pro-life presidential campaign to northern Iowa today. She holds an old-fashioned town hall meeting to connect with voters whose caucus opens the primary season. President Obama visits New Orleans this evening, marking 10 years since Hurricane Katrina struck with a vengeance. He stopped first at Tribet, one of the oldest black neighborhoods in America. Cheering crowds greeted the president to an area where flood-ravaged homes have now been rebuilt. Obama offers the people of New Orleans as an example of those building a better future. Tom Costanza, Division Director for Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese of New Orleans, Skyping with us 10 years after Katrina with the hurricane season on us again. Tom, what's your most vivid memory from when Katrina hit?
Well, my vivid memory was when we were at the airport right after the disaster hit, where we had 6 Catholic Charities social workers really having a ministry of presence of those people in the airport that were being, flown in, helicoptered in, fragile, elderly. We were just being there present for them. And to me, that was a vivid memory that I'll have, for forever.
You know a lot of people who lost a lot. Did your neighbors lose a lot in that storm?
I was fortunate. I didn't personally lose a lot, but 80% of the Catholic Charities staff lost a lot. And they were still able to come back pretty quickly and help other people. And that was so important for the church to be present in people's lives. Even though your life was impacted, you had enough strength through your faith to help other people, which was very endearing to us and the whole community.
I'm sure 10 years of rebuilding has been very challenging. Can you just give us a snapshot of that?
Sure. On the rebuilding side, of course, we've made a lot of progress on our bigger anchor institutions like the hospital systems, and we have a new airport coming online, Annex. We still have a lot of work to do in certain areas of the city. In the 9th Ward and certain areas have been impacted, and recovery has been a little slower there. But overall, the progress, we're making progress, and we need to continue to make the progress and use this commemoration to remind us that we have a lot of work to do.
The Gulf Coast gets its share of natural disasters. Catholic Charities is always there at those times when they're needed most. Have you been able to develop new emergency response plans as a result of these disasters?
Absolutely. Every disaster is a little different, and you learn from it. We do lessons learned after every disaster. We work much better now in an ecumenical interfaith way. We know these disasters are so catastrophic that we all need to work together. But Catholic Charities, especially our schools, came back quickly. Our priests came back. We were on the ground providing food and distribution points. But also along the way, we're sort of like early responders, but forever responders. We're still responding to Katrina right now and to the other disasters.
Well, thank you for the good work you and the church do in that area, and we thank you for joining us. Tom Costanza, Catholic Charities, the Archdiocese of New Orleans.
Thank you.
Coming up, the living legacy of St. Monica and her son Augustine. And it's now been 500 days since hundreds of Nigerian schoolgirls were kidnapped. Today we celebrate St. Monica, patron of mothers. She prayed for years for the conversion of her husband and her son, St. Augustine. St. Monica lived to see both of them convert. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and I honor my own mom today, my own St. Monica. She passed away 5 years ago today. May she rest in peace. St. Monica's son, Augustine, and other church fathers helped form the Catholic identity we know today. Mark Irons talked earlier today with Father Robert Dodaro from Rome's Augustinianum.
Father Dodaro, give us an idea of who St. Monica was and the relationship she had with her son, St. Augustine.
Well, Monica was Augustine's mother, and she was a woman who pursued him throughout his youth, always trying to push him, first of all in his career, and secondly, towards conversion to the Catholic faith.
Tomorrow is the feast of St. Augustine. What is his message for the world today, and why is it important?
Augustine turned to the Catholic faith because he was looking for wisdom and truth. He was consumed with a hunger for God. And that's the message for today. In today's world, with all this secularism going on, people are really hungry for the truth, for wisdom, and for God.
And, St. Augustine is sometimes attributed with the saying, the prayer, Lord, help me to be pure, but not yet. First off, did he really say this? And if so, why did he pray this way?
Yes, he really said it. And what he meant was, the good things that I want to do, I can't do. Augustine was aware of the power and the lure of sin in his life and in all of our lives. So what he was really saying was, I can do this, Lord. I can follow your commandments if and only if you give me the grace. Only if you help me can I do this.
And Father, you're an Augustinian priest, an order inspired by St. Augustine. What attracted you to the order?
I was interested in joining a teaching order. I knew at an early age I wanted to be a teacher, and I am a teacher. The Augustinian order has been, in the business, really, of teaching in schools, universities, throughout its 750-year history.
Father, finally, on these feast days of St. Monica and St. Augustine, how can we celebrate and honor their lives?
I think we need to look, at the family, because Monica and Augustine are about, a family trying to become closer to God, like every family is. He had a troubled youth looking for that truth. And in some ways, that reflects a lot of families in our world today. Now, I think Monica is one of the first saints to be recognized by the Church who was a laywoman, a mother. And that's important for the Church, too. We've always appreciated that role of motherhood, and the nurturing role of motherhood in helping children to find the faith. Augustine is one of the greatest minds in the history of the Christian faith, one of the greatest writers in the history of the Christian faith. And none of that would have happened without his mother.
Father Robert Dodaro, president of Rome's Patristics Institute, the Augustinianum. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. And Father Robert, and South Sudan rebels doubt that the president of that nation is committed to a peace deal that he has just signed. President Salva Kiir signed the deal almost 2 years after fighting began between the South Sudanese army and rebels. The agreement binds him to a power-sharing arrangement with a rebel leader. It calls for a coalition government to be established within 90 days. The U.S. has urged both sides to honor the pact. It's now been 500 days since Boko Haram terrorists abducted more than 200 Nigerian schoolgirls. They were kidnapped from this school in Chibok, Nigeria. Some have managed to escape, but none have been rescued. Today, organizers of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign hold a rally in the Nigerian capital. The group demands government action to free the 219 schoolgirls. Emmanuel Ogabe, International Director for Education Must Continue, is with us. And your organization was founded in direct response to this, wasn't it?
Absolutely. The organization is barely a year old, and it was formed to help put some of these girls back in school, which is what we're doing.
So Boko Haram opposes the education of women?
Yes, and our group is an antithesis to that. We're countering terrorism by educating one girl at a time.
We heard a lot about Bring Back Our Girls. Is anyone listening to that campaign?
Well, I mean, it was a huge global campaign last year, but just this week, the UN Secretary General was in Nigeria and unfortunately did not meet with the group. He was there, though, to mark the 4-year anniversary of the bombing of the United Nations building, which was the worst attack on the UN by Boko Haram, and it was the first attack in which an American citizen was affected.
Do we have any idea where those girls are or if they're even alive?
Well, I can say that we have reason to believe that most of them are still alive. There is circumstantial evidence that a couple of them are dead. But I want to say for the first time on this set that we know of just one girl who has escaped apart from the 57 who've escaped the first time. So we're now looking for 218, no more 219, if that is any hope to anyone.
Is there anything being done to rescue them?
Well, there's a lot going on. The military is trying to rescue them. When I was in Nigeria recently, a soldier was blown up by mine just trying to find them. So the military is really sustaining casualties in the effort to rescue the girls.
You mentioned the 57 who escaped. How did they manage to escape, and do you know how they're doing? Some of them are here in the U.S.
Yes. In fact, I am hosting several of them. I've placed about 10 of them in school here in the U.S. right now. And one of them has had a bad day, and we think it's because of the anniversary today. So she's meeting with the pastor as we speak to counsel her. But there's good news. 2 of them have just been admitted to college, and if we're able to raise the funds, they will be going on to further education.
That's wonderful. How were they able to escape?
Well, most of them escaped by jumping out of a truck. There was one young lady who is in our program who said to them, I'm not going to go on with these people. I'm going to take my life into my hands. If anyone wants to do it, I'm game. And
what courage, what courage. Is anything any better since there was a new Nigerian president elected?
Unfortunately, no. The casualties have been about an average of 100 a day since the new president came into power. Boko Haram has killed more people than ISIS. Last year, globally, Boko Haram was the top terror group in the world with the highest kills. And you wouldn't know that listening to the news because all the focus is on ISIS.
Very much so. From Education Must Continue, Emmanuel Ogabe, thank you again for coming back to see us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Up next, we explore the beauty of faith with Dr. Jem Sullivan. And digital disciples will trail Pope Francis on his first U.S. visit. Our Beauty of Faith segment features Dr. Jem Sullivan, a former guide at the National Gallery of Art who authored a book by that name. I just so happen to have that book right here, The Beauty of Faith. It's great to have you back with us.
Thank you.
We are remembering the martyrdom of St. John the Baptist this weekend. We have 2 pieces of art that are quite contrasting. The first shows this cousin of Jesus with his cousin when they're toddlers.
That's right. This beautiful image from the National Gallery of Art really reminds us of how close John the Baptist was to Jesus. The birth of Jesus and the birth of John the Baptist were not far apart, so they would have grown up together. They would have most likely played together as infants. And that is exactly what the artist Fernando Yanez de la Almudena is showing us here. We see Mary at the center of the scene. She's dressed in robes of red and blue, colors that point to the divinity and humanity of her son, the incarnate Word of God. Mary, as a young mother, looks with great tenderness and love on the two children playing beside her. John the Baptist was the first evangelizer, the one who prepares the way of the Lord. He is also the one who baptizes Jesus as the beginning of his public ministry, and his life ends in martyrdom, the ultimate cost of being a disciple of Jesus.
And don't forget, he was probably one of the first to recognize Jesus when he was still in Elizabeth's womb.
That's right.
He leapt for joy at the visitation. So the second piece is in sharp contrast, because now we're looking at this story of John the Baptist beheading at the hands of King Herod.
Yes, this painting by Benozzo Gozzoli is like a simultaneous narrative of three scenes from the one gospel account of the martyrdom of John the Baptist. On the right, we see Herod and his guests enjoying a banquet, a feast, in the presence of the dancing girl. We know that the mother of the girl had asked for the head of John the Baptist. And so we see him on the right, on his knees, his hands folded in prayer, as he is preparing to be beheaded. And then in the background, the young girl brings to her mother on a platter the head of John the Baptist. We are reminded here, as we recall the martyrdom of John the Baptist, that the blood of martyrs is the seed of Christianity, as Tertullian said, and that even as we think about the countless Christians who even today are being persecuted and martyred for their faith, that we pray that their blood shed for Christ will sow the good seed of faith in those lands.
Isn't it amazing that such a gruesome scene, a beheading, where the head is actually handed on a platter, can be woven into such a beautiful piece of art?
And that's the genius of these artists.
So tell us a little bit about the book, The Beauty of Faith. How do you describe the art, and where do you try to bring the reader?
The book really is a reflection on how art can be used, or has been used in the church's tradition, for catechesis and evangelization. That it was really meant to teach, to instruct, to draw people to love the beauty of faith expressed in these masterpieces of art.
So there were many people in the early church who really couldn't read, and they learned about their faith from pictures.
That's exactly right. For the most part, people were illiterate, and these were the Bible of the poor, so to speak. What they could not read in the pages of Scripture, they were able to see on the walls of the cathedral, of the church, of the chapels.
And all these years later, we benefit from The Beauty of Faith. That's Dr. Jem Sullivan's book. Thanks so much for being with us, Jem.
Thank you so much.
Well, a digital street team of millennials will take to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook during the Pope's U.S. visit. They'll be posting stories, photos, and tweets to inform and hopefully inspire. Suzanne LaFranchi has more.
Pull up Instagram or Twitter. You can search @PopeIsHope.
Danella Singer is a disciple of sorts, a digital disciple. The 20-year-old Catholic University graduate is one of 50 young street journalists covering the Pope.
A group of tech-savvy millennials that are very interested in getting the word out there, the good in the world. And if you're a millennial in the U.S., we want you.
They come from 23 states and will post Francis's every move at the Pope is Hope handle on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, and Vine. About half the team will be on site in Philadelphia, New York City, and Washington, D.C. The rest will post local reaction using the hashtag #GoodIsWinning. Francis is a regular tweeter with nearly 7 million followers in English.
I love seeing his tweets. He has a lot of hopeful and inspiring words to say on Twitter.
The Good is Winning's goal is to spread the gospel through social media. Organizers are hoping to inspire and engage young adults.
Especially for our generation, to be able to get on Instagram and Twitter and see all of the things that Pope Francis is doing, to see how humble he is. And I think that's the biggest thing for our generation.
And it's in line with the Holy Father's goal of bringing the gospel to not only the streets, but to cyberspace as well. In Washington, I'm Suzanne LaFranchi for EWTN News Nightly.
Good is winning. I love that theme. Until tomorrow, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again if you'd like on YouTube. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Good night. May God bless you.